the 13th of June, 2024. Welcome back to the Nuclear Terrorist Show. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana Durnford. You can call in at 709-589-4406. Except for Calm Down Charlie, of course. Operation Long Jump. Operation Long Jump. It's Operation Long Jump, and he called in, they threatened me, and then over a number of months they had done it, and then they said, Long Jump is now operational. I wouldn't want to be old, Mr. Dana. You call in at 709-589-4406 if you got questions, you want to raise some points, if you want to have a debate, if you want to fight. This is a pretty scary map. This is Rika map. The little blue tiny spot, that's for radioactive fallout. The whole country should be painted blue, not just Nevada. It's an incredible betrayal. There's another scary map out there. See the map of all nuclear power sites. This is dumps and everything. And the Great Lake watersheds. The Great Lakes watershed. The Great Lake watershed. Within the watershed of the largest surface freshwater system on the entire planet. Think about this statement, because you're not going to believe what I'm going to tell you next. Within the watershed of the largest surface freshwater system on the entire planet, there are 23 nuclear power plants, but there's all kinds of dumps. This is just stunning. This is stunning. So it's clear they're trying to poison the largest freshwater reserve aquifer on the entire planet. Lake Erie, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior. And there's around 37,000 small ponds that you can't see in that particular model that are all connected. The largest surface freshwater system on the entire planet is saturated with nuclear disease factories, which means all of these aquifers are completely contaminated forever. And which raises an interesting question. We got a poll. I guess I got to click that too. My apologies. We got a poll. Was lining the Great Lake with mass nuclear intended to poison the majority of the people and the farms in the United States and Canada? And there clearly is just one answer to that one. That's a affirmative. Dirty buggers, man. We covered this 7, 8, 9 years ago or something, and I forgot about it. And it showed up in another news cycle, thank goodness. And I should have been covering that last night. But I think it's probably appropriate for the weekend show. This is the last show of the week. We do our shows Sunday to Thursday. Oh, and I got everybody here. La 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 la. I got another site on Rumble. I forgot to tell everybody about. And I took down the other site because I was having huge problems with it. And so this site, I'm not having no problems with it. And I just started paying for the site, so maybe we'll get booted out there too, right? These are pay as you go basically sites. And this one's called Rad Rabbit. And that's my site, Rad Rabbit. I currently have 2 videos up there. These were test videos, and they both streamed absolutely perfectly. And they didn't get longer 12 hours later. YouTube video today, every video on my site gets longer after 12 hours. Last night's video is 25 seconds longer 12 hours later. 12 hours later, the comments shows up, the video gets longer. And so we believe they're putting software into it. These videos didn't change their duration. And I encourage everybody to subscribe to that site. I'm going to become active on that site on the weekends. And there's a lot of stuff like we can't say on YouTube that we can say on that site, right? And so there'll be some great stuff showing up on that site. And what I should try to do is like post a little blurb blurb on this site, the YouTube channel, to let you know that I'm going live over there. And away we go here tonight. Let's get after it tonight. Map of all nuclear disease factories on the Great Lakes watershed. Within the watershed of the largest surface freshwater system on the entire planet, there's a massive amount of disease factories. Because that's the proper name for a nuclear power plant, nuclear dump is a disease factory, right? They're splitting atoms into the ecosystems, and the atoms, of course, destroy everything with replicating cells. Speaking of destruction, look at that creature to your left there. Not me, maybe me, but Janet. The largest surface freshwater system on the entire planet. Why would you put a nuclear plant in freshwater? That is so evil. The implications of it are insidious because people don't drink the ocean water, right? But they drink fresh water. People don't grow food on farms with salt water. They grow it with fresh water. People go, well, they do, I suppose, swimming in salt water, but the majority of people swim in fresh water. It's absurd. This is actually absurd to suggest that and when I point, it's going to go the opposite way, is it? Hang on, I think I can fix that, actually. I can't fix it there. Maybe we can fix it over here. Oh, that's not fixing it. There we go. Do some... Because I can make myself taller. Oh, I can make myself wider, so I can make myself skinnier. Look at me, look how skinny I am. Ho ho! Look how tiny I am. Oh, hang on here. I just gotta stop fooling around and fix that. It'll take me a second here. So when I point, I was doing it to me again. Oh, that's because I zipped when I should have zoomed, right? My apologies. I got no excuses now. I got everything screwed up to it. We'll fix that. Hang on. Bear with me. All right. There we go. We're all goody. Okay. Well, not really, but... some technical difficulties, because I should have done this before the show. And guess what? I didn't. Okay, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I apologize. I know I'm a screw up. Sue me. Okay, here we go. Gonna make me work for it today, are they? Don't worry about it. I'll come back there in a second here. Warning, this is a nuclear power plant. And it's on the Great Lakes. 4 sites for mining uranium on the Great Lakes. This is literally one of the stupidest pictures you're ever going to see. Buddy on his tippy toes with a Geiger counter. You don't need to be on your tippy toes with a Geiger counter. Because they hire people for that job that don't have a clue, because they're considered the canary in the gold mine, right? Or in this case, uranium mine. 6 for uranium processing. Stupid. What a stupid industry to put nuclear disease factories on the Great Lakes. And 12 places nuclear waste is stored. 12 places. And look at this. Have you ever seen anything so stupid looking in your life? This is to try to convince you that there's nothing getting off the site. But all the fuel pools have no containment. Everything is splitting atoms. This is 100% show and tell. This is to make the workers complacent, particularly the maintenance workers that comes in during the fuel replenishment. Michigan currently has 2 operational nuclear plants. The Fermi, which had a meltdown in the 60s, I believe it was, on Lake Erie, one of the biggest aquifers on the planet. And look at this. They got strip electric tape across an important board. It's the nuclear industry. What do you expect, Dana? Oh, I know. I'm just saying. And American Electric Power's Donald C. Cook plant in Lake Michigan. It's when you actually understand nuclear, then you realize how actually evil this really is. They have 12 dumps on that lake too. So everything is strategically put so you're guaranteed to contaminate everything. And just the emissions from the fuel pools, even if they were 100 miles away from the shoreline, would still contaminate the lakes. And the fuel pools already put decades of reactor cores. And they're there to cool down because they're still splitting atoms. Even when they cool down, they're still splitting atoms. And then you got like Chalk River up there, the Gentilly, which was closed, but still a disease factory. I'm just heartbroken. This is unbelievable to see this. And just because a plant is closed don't mean it's not hemorrhaging radiation for the next 1,000 years off the site. It's unbelievable. It's an industry with no checks and balances. That's what you're looking at. 0 checks and balances. Canada's got 16 reactors on the Great Lakes, for goodness sakes. The nuclear industry as a whole works together. They work together. My God, boy. It's so easy to be evil, see? And the nuclear industry just seems to suck up every opportunity to be evil. Within the watershed of the largest surface freshwater system on the entire planet. Every facet of the nuclear industry screams scumbag. Like every facet of it. I don't understand the incentive to hate us so much. But clearly they have an agenda. They have an agenda. Just bear with me while I get some technical difficulties out of the way here. It's just going to make me suffer tonight, isn't it? Let's go back to the other one then, in that case. This one right here, this will work. I got no idea what I got done now. Oh, here we go. We're good to go. Some nights are like that for me. That should make you throw up seeing that map. That should terrify everybody on the planet to see that map. That's the definition of terrorism, is that particular map. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. Let's cover this story again tonight. I'll probably cover this every night for the next couple of years, because it's such an important story too. The Fukushima Medical University has been the main source of all public data on exposure. Is that any better when you do that? Or is it just check 1, 2, 3, 4? Check 1, 2, 3, 4. In dictating what medical care many in the regions were allowed to receive, this was the Fukushima Medical University, a notorious pro-nuclear genocide machine. And the International Atomic Energy Agency had a secret pact with Fukushima, the Japan government, the Fukushima prefecture, and the Fukushima particular medical university were the main source of all public data. That is the most frightening statement conceivable. The most corrupt of the corrupted were in charge. Well, this was interesting. I was looking for nuclear, and all of a sudden I couldn't find any news on nuclear. Look at this. They done a reset. Because I was working, right? And I was on page 7 or 8 or something. There's typically like 25 pages of news just in that 24-hour news cycle each day, right? So I went all the way to the past year. I went to the past month. There was nothing the past year. There was no search results. I went to the past hour. There's no search results. And then I went over to Bing and started finding some news cycle because I was wondering, what are they trying to hide from me, right? And so I ended up in this story. America's $35 billion, this was on YouTube, $35 billion new nuclear power plant. And so Buddy had said, if people are worried about nuclear waste, which is a real concern, then why not put the waste in cement blocks, concrete blocks, and dump it in the Atlantic Ocean, which is 2 to 7 miles deep. And I don't think the radioactivity would escape. And I said, they should put you in the concrete blocks and dump them in the Atlantic Ocean, you disgusting maggot. And a maggot is a grotesque figure of the Chinese or Japanese. It's like an ape, right? Bill Quigg. Like no more results in the search engine. That's where you found my video from the night before. The very last on the 24-hour search engine is typically my video. How many people makes it to the very bottom of the search engine, right? The least amount, obviously, right? Oh, yes, yeah. Here's another story, the Associated Press. Robots will try to remove melted nuclear fuel from Japan's destroyed reactor. He said, remove the nuclear fuel from the destroyed reactor and drop it directly into the ocean. Here's another person. It's unbelievable. I said, should drop you in the ocean. What a bizarre thing, eh? What about Fukushima? This is about using plasma to clean up contamination. And so this guy's a notorious sack of shit, right? He's tritium, so he's talking about tritium. He's an expert. He was really bragging to everybody that was watching the Facebook stream, which also streamed on YouTube apparently. I said, you're the reason they invented medication, and in your case, they should double the dose. The first and most critical test for fixing Fukushima gold was exposing CaCO3 to HHO to see if it exceeded the required 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, Celsius temperatures, to produce the cold neutrinos needed to promote inverse beta decay of tritium. So he was only acknowledged tritium. And he was going along this long spiel, I think it was like an hour and 40 minutes or something, this long spiel about tritium. So I will discuss the preliminary findings of my next posting. And he had a lot of people on the show. And I don't normally do this, so bear with me. Abandoned Fukushima radioactive pharmacy. So this is a couple of morons. Goes into a nuclear wasteland. They don't even have a face mask or gloves or paper suits or nothing. At least you can throw the paper suit away, right? So I was leaving a comment saying you should get rid of your clothes, your shoes, and shave your head immediately. Because if you wear the same clothes home, you put that in the laundry with your other clothes, all that's radioactive. Then your washing machine is radioactive. I was just trying to be helpful, right? Department of Energy creates a nuclear energy division. This is the Philippines. And there's the creation of it. Now, they already got multiple nuclear agencies there, but this is different. The Department of Energy in the Philippines on Friday announced the creation of a division tasked with drafting plans and policies for the Philippines' eventual foray into the nuclear power generation. Eventual foray. So they're saying they're going to do it for sure. Not the government, but the nuclear industry down there. Which is how you condition the government and policymakers into doing it, see? The Department of Energy said the creation of the Nuclear Energy Division was approved by the Department of Budget Management. Department of Budget. How about the people of the country? When do they get an actual say? Well, they don't. And, of course, the Philippines is brutal typhoons, brutal earthquakes, like epic. The brutal rain seasons are similar to the monsoons in Vietnam, right? And they're on the ring of fire. And the typhoons they have there, or cyclones, no typhoons in it, like we've seen them hit 200 miles per hour. A nuclear plant typically will shut down at 50 miles per hour. You'll destroy everything at 200 miles per hour, and they did many times. So they're talking about a position of not less than 10 people, so they're going to hire 10 people that shall promote, formulate, implement plans and programs to advance the utilization of nuclear energy in the country. Now, if this was sanctioned widely by the consensus, there'd be hundreds of people, not 10 people. So this is not a nuclear industry that just tunnels into the country and slowly starts to destroy it. And because they already have a nuclear research institute, because the degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency has coerced them into genociding the people in the hospitals with radiation, right? To establish a harmonized roadmap, policies, and proposed laws to cover and champion the 19 nuclear infrastructure issues. Conduct seminars, training courses, technical briefings, fora, workshops, focus groups to discussions to facilitate information, education, communication, campaigns on nuclear energy, evaluate applications, permit, licenses, ensure strict compliances. There's no compliance in the nuclear industry. They're your worst enemy. They're the enemy of every insect, every bird, every species on the entire planet. small modular reactors get a reality check in new report. And this is one of the Hitachi General Electric, which everybody should at least get one lawsuit against them worldwide. So, like, I don't know why, but to me anyway, it looks like a ice cream container flipped upside down with a little slit cut into it. It's so stupid looking, right? It's like half an ice cream container flipped upside down. It'll never look like that if they did manage to come to fruition, though, I can assure you that. A new report has assessed the feasibility of deploying small modular nuclear reactors, which don't exist, to meet increasing energy demands around the world. Well, last year was 507 gigawatts of renewables in 2023, came online in 12 months. Nuclear went backwards 1.7 gigawatts. And 507 gigawatts is close to 600 large nuclear plants coming online in renewable, the equivalent of renewable, in less than 12 months. You can't build a nuclear reactor in 12 years, let alone 12 months. The funding doesn't look so good for this particular form of degenerate energy production. It said that there. I'll go back and show you, but I don't need to because that's what it said, degenerate nuclear energy. Small modular nuclear reactors are generally defined as nuclear plants with a capacity to top out at 300 megawatts. There's a lot of large nuclear reactors out there. That's what they're producing, is 300 megawatts, by the way. And you're not going to put a 300 megawatt nuclear reactor in the back of a transport truck and drop it off somewhere, okay? Or 100 transport trucks and drop it off somewhere. Enough to run about 30,000 U.S. homes. Well, typically a megawatt is enough for 1,000 homes. So it should be 300,000 homes, not 1,000 homes, or 30,000 homes. But small modular reactors, and they're going to use mixed oxide fuel too on top of that, which is a curse. It's a billion-year curse on humanity and the species. There's no way to have a future with that on our planet. There's nothing will survive it ultimately. Because it does it in increments over long periods of time, but ultimately nuclear wins. Like if you find a planet that's similar to Earth in every way, for instance, and say it's got 8 million species and it's got a population, and we go there and we build a nuclear power plant and then we leave again. The nuclear power plant never melts down. Ultimately, every species on the planet will die because the fuel is splitting atoms in the fuel pools once you take it out of the reactor core, and those atoms are never going to go away. And they're going to look for a host, and there's nothing that has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. So important. But I mean, that story about the Great Lakes, my goodness. They'll probably want to put 1,000 of them around the Great Lakes, knowing these despicable scumbags. There are about 80 small modular reactor concepts. That's the right word, too, concepts. A lot of them are fantasy concepts on top of that. Because there's a lot of money going around for this industry. Like, there's an endless amount of money. Currently in various stages of development around the world, and none of them are the same. There's no consensus. And that's the worst case scenario, isn't it? All these experimental disease factories are going to be popping up everywhere. I don't think it's going to happen because renewables... Now, if you took geothermal and put it at the head of renewables instead of wind and solar, we wouldn't look at gas. We wouldn't look at oil. We would not look at coal plants. We would not look at nuclear plants. And because you can back up geothermal with extra energy, peak power with wind and solar and storage. And there's at least 20 solutions out there for storing power, massive amount of power. Like water batteries, where you have two reservoirs, you pump water up to the top with excess energy, or dedicated energy strictly for that purpose. And as your backup, right? When the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining. Or for peak power. But see, if you got geothermal, which geothermal is so simple. And all the universities are working on fusion and nuclear and small modular reactors. They're not working on geothermal because the minute geothermal shows up in large scale is the minute the nuclear industry packs up their bags. So they're scuttling everything to make nuclear look reasonable. And it still doesn't, right? It still looks like the evilest thing imaginable. The report asked if continue to pursue small modular nuclear power plants is a worthwhile. And the answer to the question pretty much found in the report's title, Small Modular Reactors, Too Expensive, Too Slow, Too Risky. And it'll be using mixed oxide fuel, but a very high SA, very high grade, military grade fuel. And when you take that out of there every 2 years, the emissions from that fuel is toxic. Everything is splitting atoms, and every atom is a hot particle. This industry is determined to kill everything. And is going to do it through the fuel pools cycles. Because you can't see it or smell it or hear it or taste it or touch it. I was on the go all day on the bike, and I was looking for more lakes, more launch places. And all that fresh air, and just a couple of days of doing this, right? And then the weekend it's going to be torrential rain on Saturday, torrential rain on Sunday. The forecast might change before that, who knows, right? But we have this big front just staying right over us for this. It's going on to 3 weeks now. I've never seen nothing like it, and I've talked to some of the people here. They've never seen nothing like this before. There's a lot of chemtrailing going on too. Well, it's perpetual, actually, isn't it? Cost escalation experienced by small modular reactors in operation or under construction. Cost escalation over budget. Original cost is the dotted line. Look at the prices. Argentina's just most of the money's gone to administration. That's why you see these exorbitant. It's loot. What they're doing with it is just loot. They're taking advantage of people's naive and just looting the government, right? And the government's participating in it, obviously getting kickbacks. The report author also pointed out a project in Idaho called Scumbag NuScale had to be scrapped because its development between 2015 and 2023, there was no development. They've been around since 2001. They still haven't produced anything. And they're the government, really. And so there's just billions thrown at them. And they still couldn't do nothing. Too busy stealing everything because 90% of the money goes to administration. Thank goodness. They're so greedy and scumbaggery. Costs soared almost $10,000 per kilowatt to $21,500 per kilowatt. That's what they're going to charge you, see? An extra $10,000 per kilowatt. It's like, but they still haven't even built it. So by the time they built it, it would have been triple. It would have been $31,000 or $41,000 per kilowatt. And every time we see this, it's the same story, isn't it? Additionally, the cost of 3 other small plants in the U.S. have skyrocketed dramatically from their initial cost assessment. And so NuScale, and this is interesting because they're doing it by the kilowatts, which is not the best way to do it as far as I can say. But it was supposed to cost around $5 billion to build 6 small modular reactors. And they were going to be equal to about 470 megawatts, or 470 megawatts. And a large reactor is 1,000 megawatts, for instance, or close to it, right? 0.89 gigawatts. There's 1,000 megawatts in a gigawatt, and a gigawatt is close to a large nuclear reactor. They're just slightly smaller by about 10 okay, so when they finally flopped NuScale, which is the only one out there, right? The false, everybody had their false hope pinned on. The actual price of the reactor, if they had to try to build them, because they didn't even try to build them, they didn't even buy land, they just stole the money, and it was a lot of money too. They estimated it was going to cost around $23 billion to build a 470 megawatt worth of energy with small modular reactors. Basically, you could build 2 large full-size reactors for the same price. And the idea was it was a Ponzi scheme where the investors' money would pay the last investors, and then the next investor money would pay those investors, the next month would pay the last investors, right? And then they were siphoning off 90% of the money through administration. And there was no intentions of building anything. At one point they were kind of forced to build up a mock, and so that made it into the news cycle, and then they dismantled everything and sold it off, got their money back. Nothing got used, right? And so every time you look at the small modular reactors, it's a Ponzi scheme. So every step of the way, it's a Ponzi scheme. And X-Energy, they're such low lives, aren't they? And of course, it goes without saying, General Electric, killing everything it touches. The money being poured into the project is money that's not being spent on developing other sources of energy that are cleaner, quicker to deploy, and safer. It is vital that this debate considers the opportunity cost associated with small modular reactor push, writes the author, and the dollar invested in small modular reactors will not be available for use in building out a wind, solar, and battery storage resource base. But again, why would you use the word batteries when there's so many better solutions? Permanent solutions. Batteries are not a permanent solution. Like compressed air storage, for instance, where you just dig mine shafts and you compress air down there. And you can store the heat from the compression many different ways. Salt is one of them. Sand is another way. Lava rocks is another way. And you can hang on to it for weeks or even months, 600-700 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And then you can unpack the heat that you recover to make the air expand even quicker, that you have stored, compressed. These carbon-free. There's no such thing as a carbon-free. Carbon-free means there's no birds, no insects, no plants. Carbon is good because you can't have humans, insects, birds, mammals, animals, whales, or anything without trees or nothing without carbon, right? Let's play that little clip from Congress. Where Congress, the people in charge of carbon, cutting carbon, were asked a rather unique question that you wouldn't expect. What percentage of our atmosphere is carbon? And the answer is just like, give me a second because it takes me a minute to... There we go. And this is so worth watching. This is so strange. They're going to be asked... Well, let's play it. And then if we got to, we'll play it a second time because it's such a great video.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Panelists, let me just go right down the line real fast. What percent of our atmosphere is CO2? Take your best guess. You don't have to be accurate. All down the line.
Repeat that question.
What percent of our atmosphere is CO2, carbon dioxide? Wild guess. It's okay.
I'll bite 5%.
5?
I'll just follow you then.
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2, so that's why we're all working on energy transition.
All right. So what number do you think it is?
5.
5. How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreyer.
7.
7. Did you have one, Mr. Boyd?
So we got a 5, 7,
This price is right.
8. I'm going to
Okay.
get the high end.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to put you on ice. I ask a lot of people that because all we hear is climate change, CO2, CO2. I heard a couple of you on the panel saying you're looking to change your vehicles to electric, even though we don't have the electric grid. And me as a farmer, I wouldn't be real happy about running out and replacing $300,000, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment because someone wants it to be electric. The answer is 0.04%. Not 1%, not a half of a percent. It's 0.04%, and it's gone up from 0.03 over the last couple decades. This is what we're being all contorted into doing, is this tiny change in CO2. If we get below 0.02, plant life starts dying off.
Okay, I'm going to sit in and go through this with you one more time because
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Panelists, let me just go right down the line real fast. What percent of our atmosphere is CO2?
now, like she's going to say, well, we're in charge of it, right?
Take your best guess. You don't have to be accurate.
Now, watch the guy in the blue tie.
All down the line.
Repeat that question.
See him, and the guy behind him is going to big smirk.
What percent of our atmosphere is CO2, carbon dioxide? Wild guess, it's okay.
And then the guy alongside of him with the black tie, of the blue tie guy with the glasses, he's got his mouth open. He's like, I don't know. Oh. She's got the stupidest answer. One of them says, what's your favorite number?
I'll bite 5%.
I'll bite. Like, you're taxing the daylights out of everybody and everything, but you don't know.
5.
I'll just follow you then.
And the guy in the blue and both guys on each side of him blow up laughing. And the girl behind him with the white sweater on is flicking her hair around. She got a big stupid grin. The girl up here, the second one, the one in the front, you can see she got the stupidest looking grin. And the girl behind her got this like, nobody's ever asked that question. I don't know the answer. They're all there, and they're all there like they got a big 2x4 up there.
We'll go 7.
Look at them. It's that nervous laughter. That it's like a humiliation word. Gee, I should know this answer. It's humiliating.
That's my favorite number.
What's my favorite number? Do that. Who says that?
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
I think it was this guy right here says, what's my favorite number? Is that what he said? One more time.
We'll go 7. That's my favorite number.
Yeah, that's him. What's my favorite number? And when you look at everybody in the crowd, 90% of them are just an utter like, oh shit, I don't know. We're the government, but we don't actually have an answer.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2. So,
I mean, that is the strangest statement. I'll see that number because we know.
transportation causes 49% of CO2. So that's why we're all working on.
That's what we're all working on. She does this. That particular action, by the way, is an arrogant, it's a hubris response, right?
Okay.
Energy transition.
All right.
Energy transition. Like if you put hot air into her, she'd float away, I bet you.
So what number do you think it is?
5.
5. But that's what they're working on. They're in charge of the transition, and they don't know what they're transitioning. And you can see the people behind him in the second row, including this guy here in the front row, and the guy on the end. And the lady down in the corner, she's looking it up online, same as the lady in the back, the very back.
5. How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreyer.
7.
7.
7.
Did you have one, Mr. Boyd?
And did you see the look on her face? Watch this again. To the right.
7. Did you have one, Mr. Boyd?
Look at her.
So we got a 5-7,
This Price is Right.
And then the guy behind him with the black tie, he's in like, there's something magical happening here. I don't understand it. This is not school children. Believe it or not, these are not. If this was school children, some of them still might know the answer. But they're not trying to know the answer. They're not acknowledging they don't know the answer. They're turning it into an actual circus. And the expression on their face is complete disbelief. Like, what? Somebody's going to ask? They never thought that somebody would ask them the question, right?
8. Okay.
And like he's trying not to fart at the same time, and he's going like, 8. And the guy with the purple tie on, he's got a look of just shit on his face, eh? The guy behind this guy, he's leaned over now. He can't. And this disgusting piece of human excuse. There's so much contempt in their faces, though, during this.
At the high end.
All right.
Oh, that's the high end. 8%. 8%! In parts per million, that would be like, you couldn't go out the door if that was some kind of pollution. 8% would be like a snowstorm or something of pollution.
Well, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to put you on ice. I ask a lot of people that because all we hear is climate change, CO2, CO2. I heard a couple of you on the panel saying you're looking to change your vehicles to electric, even though we don't have the electric grid. And me as a farmer, I wouldn't be real happy about running out and replacing $300,000, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment because someone wants it to be electric. The answer is 0.04%.
0.04%, not 8%, but 0.04, 400ths of a percent. 400ths of a percent. And some of them said 8%, for goodness sakes. I'm just ashamed to be a human right now.
Not 1%, not a half of a percent. It's 0.04%, and it's gone up from 0.0.
And 0.5% would be 0.50, 0.50. The actual percentage is 0.04.
3 over the last couple decades. This is what we're being all contorted into doing is this tiny change in CO2. If we get below 0.02, plant life starts dying off.
And so 0.02 plant life dies off. I guess if there's no plant life, it means there's no species at all. It means we're going to look like the moon in the very near future, right? And the nuclear, of course, the entire legacy for the last number of years is predicated upon carbon. We should all be ashamed that these people exist. We should be even more ashamed of the people that made such lightness of it, but yet, like this witch had said, we're in charge. Let me adjust that audio back down, because I have multiple ways to do the audio, but that volume was so low. It's good quality, but if I dub it over, we won't have the quality. So every time we play that clip, I have to manually go in to the master controls of this system and set the audio. But every time I watch it, I'm really shocked with this smirking, this none of them are ashamed that they don't know. For instance, they don't make light of it. They basically insult it. Like, why? You can see the confusion in their face originally. Why are you asking that question with a lot of these people? And when you hear these bizarre answers, you can see just their Sally Anns in the background, which is like their secretaries or whatever. Typically, they call them Sally Anns, right? You see the Sally Anns in the background, just with incredible mockery, eh? And they're on camera. They're on national TV. They're public access, right? Everybody got access to it. It's buffoons, really. And I think every one of them should be drug tested before they're allowed back in the building. Because you got to be on drugs. Nobody can be that stupid and have that job, can they? Building small modular reactors simply takes too much time. The Chateau Bay project in China, for example, was supposed to take 4 years to build, but actually took 12. And theoretically, that's a small modular reactor, because they artificially inflated the size megawatts of the reactors until they had something that they could build. But they got nothing to do with the connotations of a small modular reactor. They really don't, right? They just expanded it and said, okay, well, that's our small modular reactor limit for mass, which they're no longer small, right? So when you hear me talking about there is no small modular reactors, that's what I'm referring to. They have raised the megawatts up to the point where it's actually just a reactor. The Russian ship project had an estimated completion time of 3 years. It took 13. And this was not a ship, this is a barge. And the barge was basically an abandoned barge from the military and was appropriated by the Energy Agency. And they used bits and pieces to build it. And that's why it took 13 years. Little pieces from this reactor, pieces from that reactor site, pieces from Turkey reactor site that shouldn't have been ordered and were sitting around. And so they scuttled this thing together. And then they use it's a 7-story barge above water, and the reactor is below water. So it's probably just as deep below water. And so, but they have the arrogance, this incredible arrogance, to call it a small modular reactor when it absolutely unequivocally doesn't have those particular attributes. And we know because we cover everything over these years. And I'm cursed with a pretty good memory. And the ongoing Kareem, I say that because it haunts me at night times. It haunts me all the time. Is because how do I escape this? I do this all day, every day for so long, for so many years. It's clearly I don't do anything else. That's the sad part. But I like it because it's worthy. It's a worthy thing to do. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be prouder to do the things I'm doing. There's nothing fulfills me as much as uncovering any nuances of this industry, any minutiae, any details of this industry. Because it's absolute despicable. It's a despicable industry. Despicable. It sounds like Bugs Bunny, which was banned on TV eventually because it was too violent. It wasn't violent accidentally, by the way. It was on TV. It wasn't an accident. They don't waste enormous amounts of money and resources accidentally at that. It's all about brainwashing. This incredible agenda to control the population. They're just so anal, like children, really, aren't they? Instead of, like, you got a government. The government's job is to do certain functions: take care of the sewage, take care of the garbage, take care of corruption. And as soon as you get the job, they feel or they insist that their job now is to ninny and nanny you to death, right? You didn't hire them to do it. They had a function. And none of them does their functions. They all do the opposite. How do we get rid of you? That's what they do. And the ongoing Korean project in Argentina was supposed to be done in 4 years. Now it's its 13th year of development. And that one is far from finished. That's going to be another Watts bar at the rate it's going. And these were supposed to be small modular reactors. Oh, no, we can do it in 3 years. Oh, no, we can do it in 4 years. And none of them are small on top of that. Just another nuclear Ponzi scheme, right? The report also pointed out that Empower Power Project, which is one of the first planned small modular reactors in the United States, has its plug pulled in 2017. We covered that. After it was clear it wouldn't meet its 2022 deployment date. NuScale never even tried. They just tried to steal as much money as they could from as many vendors as they could, including investors. The lowest thing to do, man, is to steal from the investors who worked all their lives in factories or something and bought into the nuclear industry, and the industry was strictly interested in stealing their life savings. And they wouldn't survive if they didn't do that. That's how they survived. If you get on the stock market and steal the life savings of hard-working people, that's the only reason they exist today. Otherwise, they would have flopped a long time ago. A decision that effectively wasted $500 million that had already been spent on the effort. It didn't waste it because they all got rich. One of them used to call me once or twice a week and he used to brag about the 26 cars. He used to tell me the cars, the old hot rods and the engines and how much they were worth, and had the whole garage was full of glass. It was just beautiful, Dana. And he got like 15 acres of just around that, and he got his own pond and his own little river. And he used to call me up and brag about it. Pro-nuclear scumbags, right? Really, that was NuScale, by the way, who was doing it to me. One of the executives from NuScale. Because you know me, I'm shitting on him if I find them, because that's what's supposed to be done. I'm not like that in real life, right? I am, this is Dana, right, for sure. When you see me each night, that is Dana, unfortunately. But I'm not mean, right? Money, that part of Dana is only for the nuclear industry. Or like if someone asks me about the nuclear, I get this kind of face. Because nuclear is such a stupid... The people in it are the worst creatures I've come across. I'd like to see them all get DNA tested to prove they're humans. You can't be a human and still be that evil, can you? Continue to claim to be able to construct a small modular reactor. X-Energy, Westinghouse, NuScale, among others, continue to claim they will be able to construct small modular reactors in 36 to 48 months. Perhaps quickly enough to have them online by 2030, wrote the author. And General Electric Hitachi even claims that ultimately will be able to construct a 300 megawatt facility as little as 24 months. Like, this is simply blatant lies. Blatant lies because their legacy stands tall, right? But it also, we, after covering it for so many years, we know there's zero possibility they can fulfill any of these particular criteria. It just simply can't be done. Admittingly, there is not a zero chance this is possible, but it flies in the face of the nuclear industry's experience, both in terms of past small modular reactor development and construction efforts, and the larger universe of full-size reactors, all of which have taken significantly longer than projected to begin commercial operations. It's actually a really good story, isn't it? Both the unpredictable cost, extraordinary building delays make small modular reactor development just too big of a risk. And they're going to be using the mixed oxide fuel, the high assay, the military grade. It's already gone through a chain reaction. They're going to put that, and they're going to have lax laws, and they're going to put that in your community. And they have no legacy to quantify that this is going to be safe. And even building the experimental reactors at international laboratories is not going to quantify those types of assertions. As you know, like Idaho National Laboratory, or Los Alamos National Laboratories, or Los Alamos National Laboratory is about to release a massive airborne plume of tritium-3H. Not tritium, but tritium-3H. Aspergetic man-made. And there's literally there is a couple of activists that are got some traction about it. But the Los Alamos National Laboratory is a huge site. And there really isn't any checks and balances. We've seen that with the contractors. They get $1 million bonuses, and they create a toxic legacy that is here for thousands or millions of years. Because the technology for this small-scale nuclear facility is fairly new and untested, risk could exist in terms of functionality and safety. For example, the author questions if a new small modular reactor will be able to output the kind of power they claimed. And so the original, like when we covered this right from the inception, the inception, this large push that we're seeing, right? 8 years ago, 9 years ago, it was in the ether there before all of Fukushima and everything else, but it really wasn't in the public sphere until just the last 7-8 years. And there was this point 5 years ago or something, 6 years rather ago, where they said, oh, well, actually, we can produce another 30% more power. Because originally they weren't talking about the high-grade plutonium mixed oxide fuel that they were going to use, right? It's illegal in Canada, illegal in the United States. There is some government, corrupt segments of the government has permits for some facilities to produce it as an experiment, as a study. And that was a technicality for them to get their, the tunnel, to get in their a big stick in your door, so to speak. And it's an iron stake in the hearts of every species on top of that. Because the technology for small-scale nuclear facilities, new, untested, risk could exist, and the question if the technology can produce the powers that they're asserting. Based on cost and development estimates going so widely afield, the sense in the report is that the power output claims could also be off. Well, you're right in thinking that. The authors also pointed out because many small modular reactors being built using identical technologies, if a component of that tech fails, it could easily affect reactors around the world, which was another. There's around 80 independent designs out there, so there really isn't a consensus. But if one starts mass producing a new technology, and then they find a flaw, which is typical, especially because the neutron bombardment, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays, the alpha emissions, the Wigner effects, right, where it corrupts the integrity of everything. There's no metal. There's no. Even if you took the old samurai swords with all the magical properties, it'll still corrupt it and make it brittle in no time at all. And because they're high pressure, typically, you can't have something like that. And if you have an accident, it's deadly for half the planet right away within a week. It's sad that we would allow this kind of technology to exist, and it only exists through deceit and dishonesty, right? It doesn't exist because they're open or honest. There is no honesty in it. That's not even a word that applies to the nuclear industry, is it? If a component of the tech, if a component of the identical technologies fails, it could affect all the reactors. Have to be upgraded, so to speak. And this is not something that is, this is very dangerous technology we're talking about. It's not something you just, you can hire somebody on for $9.99 an hour, and they get a stepladder and go in and change a light bulb. Right? You're talking, who knows how many millions of dollars for each of these And you might not even be able to fix any of them on top of that. And that's the big thing, right? It might be a fatal flaw, and you have a whole bunch going off before they acknowledge it and admit to it. Because one thing about this industry is it loves to cover up flaws. For example, to bring up the fact that the steam generators needed to be replaced to have more than 110 pressurized water reactors, with half of those operating in the US because of the denting and wall thinning of the tubes. All the Canadian reactors have those particular attributes, right? 110 pressurized water reactors. They need to replace the generators. You know, like a typical reactor is going to spend over $110 million each year, $370,000 a day on maintenance. You know how much you're going to spend a day on the same capacity of geothermal? Maybe $10,000 a day. And that would be extreme. That would be an extreme. You probably wouldn't have to spend half of that. Just people going around checking, basically, right? But nuclear plants, they have to spend at least $110 million a year. It's basically $370,000 a day was the number, actually, that they had quoted, and we had divided by 365, ended up with $370,000 a day. Maintenance! How much does these reactors make a day? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how much money you're spending on maintenance each day. This is insane numbers, and it's not sensible when you can replace it with geothermal, and then for peak power you can use wind and solar backed up by storage. Our concern is broader in that a problem at one of the small modular reactors might have serious repercussions at many of the small modular reactors with the same standardized designs. These are all 100% legitimate concerns, right? At least 375,000 megawatts of renewable energy generating capacity is likely to be added to the U.S. grid in the next 7 years. 375,000 megawatts. That's just to the United, not worldwide, but the United States, right? Worldwide last year was 500,000. 507,000 megawatts came online of renewables, which is 507 gigawatts, right? Now, they're not talking about geothermal. It's like it doesn't exist. It does exist, right? It's a fascinating industry that is just drilling bits for the next 10, 15 years is expected $50 billion. So they're expecting a huge push. But it's been suppressed for 80, 90 years. It's finally getting into its own light. But we're not seeing, if all the universities had a section of the universities, like say if all the universities are working on fusion for the industry and they're working on nuclear for the industry, because that's how much influence they have. And if they worked 4 days on fusion and nuclear and 1 day on geothermal, then they would resolve all of it within a half a year. Any issues. And the only issue with geothermal is digging the last 2 miles, right? Because then you're going to hit 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And that's hotter now than gas, oil, coal, or nuclear. So anything gas, oil, and coal, or nuclear can do, geothermal can do better. Anything small modular reactors can do, geothermal can do better, and can do it right away. And you don't have to get a special idiot degree. Just any engineering company in any community can design it for their community. This is fun. Simulation points to the existence of a charming and beautiful tetraquark. Tetraquark, this is their version of it. This is a theoretical experiment they're doing. Supercomputer simulations done by a trio of physicists in India provided strong evidence for the existence of a new type of tetraquark. And they have teams in every university working on this stuff. Incredibly, unbelievably educated, unbelievable degrees. And they come from prominent families, and they have it all. Everything's given to them. They're making enormous amounts of money. And the same thing with astrophysicists. If there's so many of them, if you took this group of people, incredibly intelligent people, and got them to make geothermal more easy, more accessible, and everything else, do you think for 1 second, we're going to be looking at small modular reactors? You think for 1 second we're going to look at nuclear? You think for 1 second we're going to be looking at gas, oil, and coal? And every nuclear power plant needs 2 dedicated, large, massive generators, gigawatt generators to run. You need 2 gigawatt gas, oil, and coal generating plants to run a gigawatt nuclear facility. Because it can't run on its own power, and it needs absurd amount of energy. These are massive sites on top of that, and they're going to need 1 million gallons a minute, which is 4,500 tons. Imagine trying to take 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks and dump them in a pipe every minute. It can't be done, right? It's an unbelievable amount of water per minute. WT BC. The tetraquark comprises 2 heavy quarks, charm and beauty, and 2 light anti-quarks up and down. And for about 4 or 5 years, now I downloaded, I don't know how much, like gigawatts of videos of lectures on this stuff. And out on the ocean, when I'm doing research expeditions, that's typically what I'm listening to clear my mind. It's fascinating stuff, but this industry is the last people you want to give the answers to. Because they're going to use it for nothing but nasty, horrifying stuff. There's not going to be any redeeming qualities to the outcome of this stuff if they resolve it. And everything they're talking about is an experiment. And they got endless money. Oh, well, that's a great idea. How much you need? Okay, no problem. We're going to give you an extra 0, actually. We like you. Thanks for playing the game of destroying everybody's future. Do you believe it could be discovered in an accelerator experiment in the near future? Well, like the churn is an experiment. Another experiment is, last night when the show was over, I had 22 thumbs up. Tonight I got 27 thumbs up already. What the hell? YouTube slack tonight. They're not censoring me as much. I'm not complaining. Was lining the Great Lakes with mass nuclear power plants and dumps and everything else intended to poison the majority of the people in the farms in the United States and Canada? Because the farm food don't just get eaten locally, right? My goodness. What a bunch of crooks. Power up. The nuclear debate is sinking into a trench warfare. Trench warfare. They show that picture there. That's a typical farmer's field around a nuclear site, a nuclear wasteland. That's what. Why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms as far as you can see? Coincidence? Or is it because every nuclear power plant, the fuel pools are hemorrhaging, splitting atoms into the environment with no containment? And the farms are the best way to move the radiation from the area. That's something you're never going to hear anywhere else. The debate over the viability of the nuclear energy, nobody else is going to acknowledge every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. Go ahead and look up at all the aerial shots of nuclear plants And then get your flashlight, turn all the lights off, go into the closet and close the door and shine the light up in your face and say, it's not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. Actually, I think I can do that. Hang on, let me see if I can do that. Just for ha-ha effects. Let me see if I can pull that off. Now, if I flop, don't make fun of me, because I'm very self-conscious. Wait for it. Have a little faith. Come on now, hang on. I can do this. So, this is not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. This is not happening. In fact, let's do the rest of the show like this. This is not happening. The debate over the viability of nuclear energy in Australia has rapidly settled into a state of affairs. Well, we jump stories that quick. I'll go backwards. I screwed up. All that clicking got me all excited, and I clacked instead of clicked. The tetraquark comprises 2 heavy quarks, charm and beauty, and 2 light antiquarks, up and down. Simulation focuses on the interaction of 2 mesons, one composed of a charm quark and a down antiquark, and the other made of a beauty quark and an up antiquark. And the detailed analysis showed that the strong nuclear force should bind the mesons into a TBC, which the trio believes could be discovered. No, we covered that. Dina. Such calculations involve approximating continuous space using a discrete lattice with a step size of a few hundredths of a femtometer, which is... I looked that up. I didn't screen capture it unfortunately. Power up the nuclear debate. I got to fix that, haven't I? Don't worry, I can make it better. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Oh my God, I made it worse. Hold on. I'm Dana's making everything bad again. Oh yeah, I didn't see that before. Oh, I got this is a disaster. Let's get out of here. I'll fix this later. Oh, I screwed this up royally, did I? My apologies. I made a big mess. Oops. Hang on. That's the way it works out sometimes. You can't win them all. Here we go. Everything good again. We're back to normal. How long, we don't know, but we're back to normal. Yep, we're all backy. All better. The debate over the viability of nuclear energy in Australia has settled into a state of affairs resembling the Western Front during World War I, with both sides digging in for the long war. That's not true. Its generation cost report released last week showed not only would nuclear power cost at least 50% more than solar and wind, it's way worse than that. It would also play no part in our energy mix until 2040. This is Australia they're talking about. There's zero possibility that Australia, if they started tomorrow morning, in 2040 would have a nuclear reactor up and running. It's zero possibility. Australia's only good for cursing. That's all they can do down there. They're not... Do anybody in there own something in their home from Australia? Anybody? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, does anybody have something in their home from Australia? Is your car from Australia? Is your guitar from Australia? Is your breast enhancement from Australia? Is your pizza from Australia? Is anything from Australia? You got anything from Australia? Speak now or forever hold your Australian peace. No offense to Australia. No offense. I love you people. No offense to Australia. I'm not trying to be mean. Yep. I'm just looking to see if anybody got something from Australia in the comments section. Nothing, eh? Nobody ever got a pet kangaroo? What's wrong with you people? I refuse to believe nobody out there got a pet viper snake or a pet tarantula with lethal bites. I can't believe that. Surely somebody out there got a pet blue-ringed octopus. One would assume that the reactors in question are small modular reactors, that the pundits claim would be cheaper and safer and quicker and could leap tall buildings and just uranium tailing from Australia. Thanks, something in the water. It found that small modular reactors were still too expensive, too slow to build in order to play a significant role in the transitions away from fossil fuels. The quickest thing to transition away from any fuel is geothermal. And you can do it, but if you really want to go big, you just got to figure out how to dig deeper. And they already did, right? So one of the ways they're going to dig deeper, and that those companies are producing this technology, is drill bits that are supplemented with 25,000 pounds per square inch pneumatic jets where they slice open the rocks. They slice the rocks like laser slice with 25,000 pounds per square inch of water. And then they have a pneumatic hammer that will crush it. And then the drill bit, which normally can't get through that deep because of the temperatures and the firmness of the rocks because they've been heated and cooled so much, can easily drill through it. And there's other technologies like a laser type, quasi-electric, I think. Quasi-electric. And it's not necessarily a laser, but it's a technology that can vaporize the rocks. So rather than trying to drill, you can vaporize the rocks. And we had that technology, by the way, in the 1950s with lasers, right? And lasers has come years ago. I had done a whole like a 2-hour show a long time ago. It wasn't a live show. It was just like a video on lasers. I went way down the rabbit hole because the rabbit hole kept getting deeper, and there's more of this, and the military applications, and what was hidden from the population that became. When Bill Clinton was elected, or when Bill the Monster Clinton stepped down, he released obsolete technology like the laser, which kicked off the DVDs, the CDs, and everything else, for instance, right? Which you can't have cell phones without the laser technology. You can't have, these track, trace, database every facet of your life, right? Like if I lifted up, the phone registered that. If I'm driving down the car and I have an accident, the phone registered everything. I was speeding at this speed, and I was clear I was impaired from the way I was all over the road before I had the accident. That's all registered in your phone, right? Insurance companies are using that now. I rarely take the phone with me unless I need it. A lot of times if I take the phone's turned off. It found that the small modular reactors were still too expensive, too slow, and kind of stupid, really, because they don't exist. Large-scale nuclear disease factors in Australia / nuclear plants would be at least $8.5 billion, according to Cisco. 8.5, really? Australia? He's not building no reactors for $8.5 billion, okay? Good luck on that one. Their first reactor is not going to come in at least 4 times. Well, it'll come in about 4 times over whatever budget they cook up. Assuming that no cost overruns will happen. Yeah. The crazies are out in full force this week. A better example to use France's 6 new EDF reactors instead, which recently saw cost jump 30% to $67 billion, 109 billion Australian dollars. First off, the French government is spread so thin as it is. Like, it's never going to, there's all this posturing with United Kingdom, with France. This is all can be traced directly back to Constipated Party 28, Conference of Parties 28, rather, where 20 nations, without the consent of the nations, said they were going to increase their nuclear capacity by triple. And none of them have even tried. And they got a deadline. What is it, 2050 or something? It's clear none of that's going to happen. We could use these figures instead, but remember that construction hasn't started on these reactors, meaning the likelihood that they will blow out their budget remains high. There's no likelihood they're going to blow out their budget. It's guaranteed. That's just the way it is. Everybody knows that. That's paying attention. The budget is about lulling you into complacency and signing a memorandum of understanding. It's not about the enormous resources and precious metals that they're going to demand, and the prominence that they want too. They want prominence, so they need to liquidate 90% of the monetary into administration, so they can all live a luxurious life. Oh yeah, we're building a nuclear power plant. Smoking their $1,000 Cuban cigars. Developing a battery that could power a small aircraft to travel, say, 1,000 kilometers using hydrogen. So there's a company in Australia that has figured out how to fly an aircraft 1,000 kilometers, a small one, using hydrogen, because you use a lot of planes in Australia to get around. And it has a customer. So that's a very promising company. I love hydrogen as a fuel. Because theoretically, you should be able to make hydrogen as you're going along, right? Once you delve deeper into that technology. Hydrogen is going to power, and could have easily powered the entire system decades ago. It was suppressed over and over and over. And people that had made the breakthroughs were either assassinated or were just bought out. Using hydrogen is a game changer for us. We can get up to 1,000 kilometer flight distance, and that's what we needed for the work we do. So flying 1,000 kilometers in any kind of small plane is extraordinary, right? And that's the plane they're planning on using. I always love these designs. These dreams, right? And it almost look like pontoons, don't it? They look like pontoons, like it can land on water also. And that fin kind of suggests it might land on water. The props don't, but... And so it has redundancy. Look at the redundancy. So they can actually turn straight up and they can land like a helicopter. That's the idea of that concept. But look at the redundancy. It's crazy, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 motors. All the motors are going to be independent. So it's a lot safer than a single motor airplane in many ways, right? Testing is already underway at a strip near Wellington. So they already got a model. Or maybe that's the real one, is it? Testing is already underway. Maybe that's the real plane. I don't know. And if all regulatory approvals are met, operations could begin in 2027. Not 2047, not 2057, but 2027, in a couple of years. Takes off like a helicopter and flies like a plane with 8 motors. And they're estimating 60 million drone flights yearly by 2043. The Swinburne University of Technology completed the first flight of non-crewed hydrogen fuel cell eVolt drone in Australia in October last year. AMSL Aero is also developing its own unscrewed aircraft after receiving a $3 million grant to build a remotely piloted version to be used for aerial firefighting. Being remotely piloted, you might use it in ways that are too risky for a pilot today. Potentially save people's lives on the ground by getting to those situations where there's a raging fire threatening people. Thanks to Fukushima, now the whole planet is erupting in forest fires because you killed a biota and the ecosystem, the forest, the litter, and the foliage is not breaking down anymore. And so when you get a lightning strike now, it runs out of control because you have all this fuel that never denigrated, right, properly, never broke down into the recycling, right? A conference of parties is constipated party, that's right. Constipated is exactly what it sounds like. Did anybody have anything they got from Australia? I'm just checking the comments right quick. Nope. Burgers Time 2 says, thoughts on the other plant reopened? I don't know what you mean by that. Thoughts on other plant reopening or something, INV. You missed the G, did you? Reopening. Thoughts on the other plant reopening. I don't know what you mean. Can you extrapolate or expand on that? 2 workers at Fukushima plant hospitalized. This is a story by Mary Yamaguchi, who, as we know, is just an unbelievable... She's part of the propaganda machine, like any official stories coming out. The other nuclear plant in Japan. Oh, the one TEPCO is going to open. It's on a fault line, right? That's just, it's not very far from the Noto Peninsula, from Ishikawa. And they had 6,900 homes where the businesses destroyed by liquefaction on January the 1st. And they've acknowledged now that the fault line that ruptured over in the Noto Peninsula, just not very far offshore, 10, 15 miles offshore, is a 3,000-year-old fault line that also ran directly over to the Niigata power plants you're alluding to. And that we know that the fault line caused liquefaction of 6,900 homes over there. In January 1st this year, 2024, significant earthquake they had, which had over 1,500 landslides on the Noto Peninsula, which is, 80 kilometers away from the Niigata nuclear power plants you're talking about? And we still got no pictures of the communities up in the Noto Peninsula. Right, some of these places were isolated for 7, 8, 9, 10 days. And that it was 53 ports were damaged. 9 of them rose up by 13 feet, and that's the same fault line that has been dormant for 3,000 years, right? I think they're making a real mistake because that fault line in 2020 had around 8 earthquakes a year, 20 earthquakes, small quakes a year. But in 2021, 2022, 2023, they were getting 22,000 earthquakes a year. So it was clear that earthquake in January 1st was coming through. But what was also clear after the Noto earthquake in the Ishikawa prefectures was that that quake, that was a small rupture on that 4,000-year-old fault line. But look at the damage. It opened up 150 kilometers of there was 1,400 landslides. There was 1,600 aftershocks. So clearly that thing is not finished. And we covered it for almost a month because the nuclear power plant on the Noto Peninsula, they said that they had a 5.9 on Japanese scale seismic intensity, the Shindu scale, seismic intensity scale of 10, right? At the Shika plant. And then the footage, there was a little bit of footage came out from this media, but they were looking up in the sky. They didn't look at the plant. They looked at the very top of some of the buildings, administration buildings and stuff like that. It was the strangest. And then Shika, the community itself, was hit with a 7 out of a 7, which is only 10 kilometers away from the Shika nuclear disease factory itself, the power plant. And that coastline, 80 kilometers of it rose up 13 feet, and part of that was the Shika coastline. And so even though it was shut down since 2011, at the top of the buildings, because these are boiling water reactors, were decades of reactor cores. I hope that answered your question anyway. So Mari Yamaguchi, this was 7 months ago or something, this story. Now Mari Yamaguchi is the one who comes out with the official propaganda. Whenever they're going to move the goalpost on an event, Mari Yamaguchi from Associated Press is usually the catalyst for 1,800 media to regurgitate a certain narrative. And we counted the tanks. There's actually only 750, not 1,000. And that I can show you all the evidence you could ever dream of, that you'll come to the same conclusions as everybody else when you see it, is the tanks are empty. Yeah, burgers, it's a terrible idea. It's just it's idiotic to reopen that particular plant, which is I think is the biggest in the world, that particular plant. It's been shut down for 10 years or something. And TEPCO is in charge. The most incompetent organization imaginable, which was nationalized by the government in 2011, but they left him in charge so they could have a fall guy, right? Don't blame the nuclear industry, blame TEPCO, rather. But Fukushima built these tanks. All the tanks were built in 2013. They were all filled, allegedly, also in 2013. There's so many variations of the laws, they can't keep up with it themselves. We can, they can't. Because they just don't care. They'll just say whatever pops into their shitty little heads each day, right? 2 workers at the tsunami-wrecked Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plants were hospitalized after accidentally getting sprayed with liquid laced with radioactive material. Oh, this was Alps water. This was August the 24th, 2023 they're talking about. And so in order to make the story believable, they come out with a lot of stories similar to this, right? Which, for the average person who now was interested in this topic and would look it up, this is what they would find was these asserting stories meant to assert the propaganda. That's all this was. There is no Alps water filtration system because you're talking about multiple sieverts per liter. If you put that into a filter, you're never getting back into the facility, and you can't change the filter, and you can't bring the filter somewhere because, like, first off, you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of sieverts. Even if it was 6 feet thick lead filters, you still can't get near it without a lethal dose. It's a sniper round. These kinds of neutron bombardments and beta rays and gamma shines. To the treatment of radioactive wastewater accumulates on the planet. And that's 100% propaganda meant to lull the population into complacency, and that's exactly how it worked. It worked, right? It simply can't be done, but the propaganda was overwhelming, so the average person has no way of understanding the propaganda, the bigger picture. unless they find me, and you're not going to find me very easily. Good luck on finding Dana. Food safety experts monitor tritium in Fukushima wastewater. Food experts. Food safety experts monitor the tritium in Fukushima. Oh, we got your back. Taiwan on top of that. That's one of the craziest stories imaginable right there. That screams scumbag every step of the way. So they didn't monitor anything for the first 12 years. Then when they moved the goalpost and said nothing got out, everything was in the tanks, and they're going to start releasing it 12 years later. Maybe you don't understand that. Let me explain that to you a little for a second. Kind of important. So how much do you think got out of the building to your left? That's reactor 4 at Fukushima. Well, it was reactor 4 at Fukushima. Have you seen reactor 3? She's pretty. A little bit of fucking sawdust and cardboard mixed up with a bit of glue. You have that thing fucking up and running in no time at all. That's a Medusa, by the way. That's a plutonium mixed oxide facilities. At the top of the buildings, where the reactor cores are stored, decades, there's around 8 reactor cores in those 2 fuel pools. Each reactor core is equal to about 100 Cheronobyls. And at the top of the buildings were 800 Cheronobyls, basically. And this one is way worse again. This is triple that, because this was a plutonium mixed oxide. You can tell by the damage how hot that cooked off. There's 2 more reactors like that and 8 fuel pools altogether. There's 4 reactors, including reactor 4. Now, officially, that didn't happen. As of June 13th, 2023, International Atomic Energy Agency says that never happened. International Atomic Energy Agency said that never happened. Nothing got out. We got everything under control. Don't listen to Durnford. Durnford's just, he likes picking on us. The other 2 had liquid soaked through their double-layered paper suits, hazmat suits. Every time you hear the word hazmat suit, I blow up laughing. I'm forever contaminated now with that. Because TEPCO put out a story where they said they burnt 7,000 paper suits a day, / hazmat suits. Paper suits. 7,000. So stop picking on us, Dana. We were picked on them for a whole week straight with their paper suits. I was like, if you wore 1,000 paper suits, you still can't protect yourself from the gamma shines, the beta rays, the neutron bombardments, the alphas, the X-rays, the Wigner. Double layered paper suits. Got your paper suits? Yeah, let's roll. Stupid. This industry just don't like people because you don't send them in with paper suits. And underwear could not sufficiently lower the radiation levels. And the time of tritium, right? Refusing to acknowledge anything else exists. Everything at that site is tritiated. All water is going to be tritiated. It's impossible for it not to be, right? And you can't separate the uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, the strontium's atoms because they're all the same size. You can't isolate cesium-137 like the Siri system or the Curian system was suggesting. That was the cover story, right? And no nuclear scientist on the entire planet has ever come out and said the fuel pools are gone, despite clearly the fuel pools are gone. No nuclear academic or university or no nuclear scientist anywhere on the planet has said the fuel pools are gone or the reactor core is gone. None. Despite the fact clearly every one of them looked at us and said, yeah, they're gone. And so, you see stories like this is all meant to reinforce the propaganda. And what they're like, it's embarrassing that these people are left unchallenged, right? So I decided a long time ago that, yeah, they're going to destroy my name. They're going to make up all kinds of lies about me. Everybody's going to hate my guts that don't know anything about this. I'm going to be the bad man no matter where I choose to live. I'm going to be under siege for the rest of my life. But if I educate enough people and make them articulate enough that there's nobody can beat them in a real debate, then I win. I'll ultimately win. Because I know, the minute you go public against this industry, you're going to get destroyed. And there's nothing too vile for them to make up about you. There's nothing too insidious. And, now that we got artificial intelligence running wild, there's nothing too corrupt for them to do. And how do you trace it back to them, see? Well, what you look at is, why is there so many attacks against me? When clearly I'm 100% honest 100% of the time. I'm not even allowed to make a Freudian slip. That's why you got all these little pauses. I have to think about everything. Technically, I have to be proficient on everything. Well, and so I should be too, right? And why talk about something you don't know nothing about? What's the point of that, see? And the problem is, I've been at this a long time before Fukushima came along, and I'm a reader. I read, and if I haven't got time to read, I'm driving or out walking or something like that, I would have lectures. And so I'm immersed in it. I'm cursed by it, really. But I'm immersed in it for so long. And it's very important not to make a mistake for me. Because they're going to capitalize on any of my mistakes, for starters. And if I make a mistake and find out it's a mistake, I have to correct it. And that doesn't look good, right? So I don't talk about things I don't know. Permanent site for Canadian nuclear waste disposal and toxins, the deadline looms. Deadline. The Nuclear Waste Management Organization in Canada has $26 billion for 19 years. And they haven't done anything. Now, how much interest grows on $26 billion a year? It was $26 billion 18 years ago. It was $26 billion every year, and it's still $26 billion. Does anybody really think they're not growing interest on that? And we're talking about stunning amount of money. And yet they haven't took a single assembly of nuclear fuel and tried an experiment in a deep geological repository. And no intentions for another 20 years, even if... And what do you want to do? They want to put it in the community, but they can't do it, they said, because they need the consent of the community. Like the nuclear ever asks for consent for anything else. Name something else they look for consent for. You won't find it. But you need consent for a deep geological repository. And it has to be in a farmland, which is... And I covered that a lot, so we show the pictures and the stories and everything else, right? And they need a square kilometer at the top, 250 acres. And then the other 1,250 acres that they bought, out of the 1,500 acres they bought, the 1,250 acres, they want farmers to keep farming it. They own it, but they're going to have farmers keep farming it. And they're going to repackage it at the surface in a 1 kilometer facility. Any idea how big a 1 kilometer facility actually is? It's a massive site, right? And then they're going to repackage all the fuel assemblies they're going to ship there for about 100 years doing this. And so if you contain the assemblies in a cache, you're going to fill it up with helium, right? That's to displace the oxygen so you don't have a criticality or an explosion. So you can't ship it and then let all the helium out because there's not enough helium to go around, for starters. But another thing is, once you introduce oxygen back in there, you're going to cause it's going to detonate on its own. The oxygen will cause it to detonate. So if you displace all the oxygen and reintroduce oxygen back in, it'll actually detonate because it's splitting atoms perpetually. It's the only perpetual machine, and it's a disease factory machine, is nuclear fuel. It's perpetually splitting atoms, and that's the problem. It's not that it's so... And it is a problem because it's toxic. You can't walk up to it, for instance. But the big problem with it that they don't tell anybody is that it's splitting atoms. So when it's in the fuel pool, it's boiling off about 120,000 liters a day. And there's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide doing the exact same thing. And each liter is going to have hundreds of trillions, and probably a lot more than that, anthropogenic man-made atoms into it that is boiled off into the environment, and there's no containment. So this is a problem because everything with replicating cells has no autoimmune trigger to defend against the stuff that is emitting from the splitting atoms, right? Nuclear waste disposal plant expected in 2024. And so what you want to do is have a referendum. And so part of the community that's friendly to them originally, they're throwing millions of dollars at them because they got $26 billion grown interest every day. It means nothing to them. 2 million here, a couple of million there, and buy off anybody. How much you want, 100,000? 200,000? 200,000. Well, here's $1 million. We need you to get out in the community and do things for us. No problem. This is what they're up to. And then they're looting that money for themselves. Living high on the hog. 90% of that is going to administration. The rest of it they're handing out to the communities. And they haven't built anything. Look at buddy leaning on the back of the truck. I get my picture taken, George. It's the first thing I done this week. Stood up here and got my picture taken. How about you, Tom? And this is drilling up in central Canada, northern Ontario. And these are the core, and there's all this, they just burn money on the local communities and drilling rigs and water rigs and everything. And so they become quite friendly to this industry, just throwing money at them all the time. Because they're growing so much money on the interest of the $26 billion they've been sitting on for 18 years. And so they're going to have a referendum. The referendum will always fail. It's designed to fail. And they say, oh, well, we got to go look for another spot, and we'll start surveying. It takes about 5 years, and then we got to get consensus from the communities. And why do it in the communities, though? Here's one of the most worthless sacks of excrement you're ever going to come across. Now, him and this other scientist, I say that loosely, are saying that if you put a 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter copper coating on the nuclear waste, it won't break down for 1 million years. This is one of the most insane, because first off, you got two different metals coming together, they're going to have electrolysis, right? You're going to put it in the ground, it's going to cause electrolysis. But you also got the Wigner effect, the neutron bombardment going on, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays, everything else will break down the integrity of the metal. And copper is not notorious for being a resilient material, right? But we covered him several years ago, and we cover him every once in a while because we kept the story of him and the other ones making those assertions. I think it's stunning that somebody can be that evil. It's unbelievable that somebody can even make, no matter what material you're using, you can't quantify 1 million year containment. You can't do that. Not only that, once you leave it alone, it's going to melt down. It doesn't matter if it's in a titanium or uranium sarcophagus. It doesn't matter what it's in. It's going to melt down because it's fuel. And it's going to break down the integrity of the material. And so they put all these presentations together, and they put it. These are all just models, right? And it's going to be in this. Look at this, like a joint repository. It's just shocking, boy. And copper. It's so laughable to suggest that copper. And it's going to be laid down. It's going to be laid down in one of these contraptions, and it's going to be good for thousands of years, or millions of years. That's the assertion, right? But the reality of it is they got no intentions of bringing that to fruition, because they wouldn't seek the consensus of the communities. They would do it somewhere where there's no conflict. The idea of doing it in the community is because there's going to be a conflict. And they're going to do it by the Great Lakes on top of that. not that far from the Great Lakes on top of that. And so all of these are repositories. All those lines are football fields of repositories. But the reality of it is they got no intentions of bringing it to fruition. Because the industry don't want to contain it. They want the emissions into the ecosystem because there's an agenda that I'm not aware of. But clearly there's an agenda. Current nuclear waste storage sites. Well, I showed you the majority of the Great Lakes are completely saturated with these entities that are meant to exterminate humanity. And Lori Swamy, really, right? We've covered her so much. Probably one of the most dishonest people I've seen in a long time for the nuclear industry. We deal with this daily, and she stands arms and legs above everybody else as a scumbag. And so then the First Nations got to have a referendum. And so as long as one of them says no, then it's over. So they're not trying to come up with a solution. Because if they're trying to come up with a solution, they wouldn't put themselves into that position, because that's backwards to a solution what they're doing. And here's the natives clearly stating that they intend to have a no vote. And how are we doing here anyway? Wow, we're almost there, are we? I guess we'll give it up here, maybe. I'll get this story out. Lack of skills. Workers identified as a risk in Pickering, which is the Canadian Great Lakes nuclear disease factory. Because of the tubes, right? There's 115 plants. The boilers had to be exchanged. It's a big job, eh? It's multi-billion-dollar jobs each time. And this is Canadian media. Every time I see Canadian media, it's disgusting. I apologize, everybody. Our Canadian media is just brutal scumbags. And that's not a strong enough word. It's really not. Building Ontario better. Todd Smith, the Ontario Energy Minister, with a bunch of nuke tart plant workers in the background. And look at the two girls, that girl there and the other girl over there. They literally got the same look on their face, don't they? These people are insane. This is $13 billion they're going to spend on that site. They can build a brand new site for $13 billion. City of Pickering, and the mayor of Pickering is a huge metropolitan Ontario, Toronto area. And they're surrounded, they're on the Great Lakes. And not only that, the homes are built right up to the nuclear disease factory. Typically, they're surrounded by farms. But that particular one is surrounded by a city. And the drinking water is right alongside of where they're dumping into the ocean is the intake for the water supply for Pickering. There must be a million ways to make you sick for the rest of your life, and the nuclear industry is busy looking for them. If they haven't already found them, they'll find them. Time is running out for the American victims of the nuclear tests, and Congress must do what's right. So the Radiation Compensation Exposure, that's where we're going to end right there. The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act expired on June the 7th. Now they're allegedly going to attach it to the Defense Authorization Act, which is a very secret act, right? And it always passes. Everything in it will pass. And so if they attach it to that, then the Radiation Exposure Compensation Acts will go through. But will it go through with recognitions for the victims that weren't included before? Right? That's the question. just horrified. I'll show you why in a second. By all those freshwater that's the biggest freshwater on the entire planet reserve, and it's saturated with disease factories and nuclear dumps. James Lucid donated $330 last night. James, my goodness. It couldn't have been better timing. And unfortunately, I had to renew the vehicles in the boat and the truck registration for the end of the month. For some of them, I renewed them all because... And so there was enough left over to pay for one of the launch sites. And I went up today there, but there was nobody in the office. And so tomorrow's good weather, but it's going to be windy. I'm going to get up there and try to get that, because that place you get your own key to the launch. Everything is, there's a gate, so you can't launch your boat unless you got a key, but everybody gets their own keys. And that's going to be one of my test sites. I was out on the bike again today with the drone, and I forgot to import the pictures and videos. My apologies. We'll do that Sunday, though. On Sunday's show. And that's a big relief off my shoulder. It's an incredible burden off my shoulder. I've been really bothered for the last week or so because I got the email that my renewals are coming. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about it again this year. I do that every year. Like, it's not like I'm trying to avoid it. It's just it's a big drain, right? And next week we still got to cover the renewal of the nuclear proctologist, which is the 11th anniversary of that site. And it's such a struggle to stay focused, and at the same time, because you got a lot of priorities you got to think about, but at the same time, you got to, I want to put that other picture up there. At the same time, we're in a lot of trouble, right? Because their planet is now saturated with radiation fallout from all the dumping. The nuclear weapons were brutal. That was the beginning of the decline of all the species and the acceleration of diseases. Like the cancer epidemic started in the early 70s because of a couple of decades of nuclear weapons testing. The radioactive fallout finally catches up, right? And now we're in overdrive. Fukushima has created an absolutely untenable concoction of radioactive fallout. Now it's so heartbreaking. Was lining the Great Lakes with mass nuclear intended to poison the majority of the people in the farms in the United States and Canada. Yeah, and clearly it was. And try to watch these videos in the first 12 hours. Try to keep that in your mind. If you can do it, because I know a lot of people watch this later, try watching the first 12 hours, because after 12 hours, they're inserting software into the video. And I'm trying to remember to record the videos and then upload them to my BitChute channel. But I also have and let me bring that back up, I have a Rumble channel called Rad Rabbit. And I'm doing good. We got 3 followers instead of 1. We're already growing. And I started this up, and so these videos don't get longer. And I had to close down my other site because it was censored so heavily. And so we're hoping this one. Now, I'm generally hoping to post on this in the weekends. And I might post during the weekdays too. Particularly topics that I can't talk about on YouTube, for instance, right? And I like doing the live streams because it saves me time and energy. Even though it's a lot harder, it still saves me time and energy. So, because it's really difficult to sit there and shoot a show and then upload it after, right? There's a lot goes into it. And so, if I record this show tonight, That's going to be around 80 or 70 to 90 gigabytes, which is too big of a file to upload, by the way. To BitChute, it's too big of a file to upload to Rumble. And if you upload that kind of a file to YouTube, that could take 8-9 hours before it renders into a format quality high enough for you to enjoy, right? Okay. And we haven't heard from Stephen Young. I'm just terrified to call. The last thing I want is bad news. I really like Steve. If you know anything about me, I really like Stephen Young a lot. He's been around a very long time. And he used to write all the Congress and senators about Fukushima. And then when they replied, he would CC me reply. And he was so genuine. He was always so honest, and he was always so sincere in all of these correspondence that he'd done with Congress and Senate. Right? It was very well thought out what he was doing, and it was a super, and still is, as far as I know. I'm not suggesting that he's not with us, but I know he can't be doing good if he is, right? And I hope nothing but the best for him. And it's just, I'm so used to him reaching out. It's just every day I think about him, and at some point I'm going to have to call him. Alrighty, so that's the show tonight. Extra hooks for James Lucet. What do you say, right? We're all in this together. It's a terrible story, and we're all committed to doing a moral and ethical thing. And all of you out there that are here regularly are incredibly articulated on this subject. There's nobody else on the planet can beat you in the debate. All the propaganda machines will wither and run away crying. You know, they can't win a debate, an honest debate. So you're very special people that are educated on this topic. It takes a lot of fortitude and courage to look at this terrible, heartbreaking story. And we'll see everybody tomorrow, Sunday night. You might see me on the weekend. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. And if I'm out there on the go, I'll probably be posting videos. I don't think I'll be streaming live from the woods or something if I happen to make it out there, because you know the quality's going to be low, right? And so I'll probably pre-record it and upload it when I get back home. See everybody on Sunday. Have a great night. If you can donate, for goodness sakes, please remember to donate if you can donate. The links are in the bottom of the description. We can't fund this operation anymore. We need help. People need the help. People need to step up. I can't fund it. I'm doing everything I can. I can't keep the operation. We're just barely hanging on. It's a struggle. If not a day go by, I don't have to do a bunch of repairs. People just gonna have to figure out a way they can donate $10, $15. And we get enough people doing it, we can fund this operation. We're in real trouble. And I need support. I'm begging you. I'm not asking you. I'm begging you for your support. I'll see everybody Sunday. Have a great night and a great weekend. I hope for everybody. Take care, folks.